Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In case of an emergency and we need to evacuate the room, there's a door in the back of the, ooh, I don't know if you can go out that. A door in the back of the room?
Yep, you can.
You can? Well, I know because they have it blocked.
We came through.
All right, and then you can go down this, go out the doors, down the stairs, and away from the building. Roll call, please.
Donna Corbin-Sabinsky.
Here.
Kevin Zorda.
Here.
Virginia Higley. Here. Kelly Hemler.
Here.
Dylan Bridge.
Here.
Ann Collins is absent. Ken Kaufman.
Here.
Chris Renaud.
Here.
And Robert Gillespie's absent.
Okay, we'd like to see Chris. Okay. Public communications and petitions. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak regarding items not on the agenda? Anybody want to speak regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Correspondence. We did get an email June 19th from the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning with some workshops, booklets. There was some inland wetlands ones and one called Workshop Materials of Good Governance. That had some information there. That was pretty good. We received an email from Lori Witten on Monday the 23rd regarding remote access and have a Zoom meeting. You'd have to request, I think everybody saw it, you have to request it to the chair and then we tell the staff. We got Tuesday, June 24th, we should have received Kakiwik article regarding their annual meeting coming up on Saturday, November 15th, so more information to come. And I think that's all I have for correspondence. So next would be minutes of preceding meeting for June 17th.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes of June 17th, 2025.
Second.
Second, Kelly. Okay, discussion? Nope. Sure.
On the roll call vote for the one motion by Kevin last week, I was omitted.
Oh, I didn't see that. Very nice. Okay.
Did you vote for it?
Yes, I did.
So
It was Kelly's fault.
yeah. Make an amendment to
So amended.
Second.
second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Donna Corbin-Sabinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley. Yes. Kelly Hemler.
Yes.
Dylan Bridge.
Yes.
Ken Kaufman.
Yes.
Chris Renaud.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. The next we have is our town attorney report dated June 24th regarding items in litigation. Then we have no continued public hearings. But now we have a new public hearing. So can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for IW number 71533 North River Street.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Okay. So let me get settled here. Get my paperwork out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, explain the rules, that the applicant will give statements about the application. Afterwards, agents and staff may ask questions and comments. We'll then hear statements from the public only regarding, oh, thank you. Yep, only regarding the topic of the public hearing and the areas of concerns for inland wetlands only. Please do not bring up items from other agencies, such as P&Z, as we can only base our decisions on the rules and regulations of the inland wetlands. All those wishing to speak, when called upon, you must state your name and address for the record. We'll set a time limit. Looks like we have 2 people, so you'll be fine. At any time the hearing becomes unruly or unmanageable, we'll call a recess. Statements from the public are for the purpose to be considered in the deliberations of the regular meeting. There's no back and forth in the discussions. We'll then hear statements from the applicant to address any concerns and questions that was heard from the public. And the applicant needed to provide a document sent out to the neighbors.
So the applicant did have to send out mailings to the list of abutters, which I did receive the document confirming they had mailed
Perfect.
to the abutters.
Thank you very much. Does the secretary have a legal ad, or?
Yes.
You could read that.
The Enfield Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency will hold a public hearing at their special meeting on Tuesday, July 1st, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. IW number 715, 33 North River Street. Application for a wetland permit for development of an apartment complex, and associated improvements within the Upland Review Area. 33 North River Street LLC applicant, Alona Levitz, owner, map 7, lot 3, TD-4 zone.
Thank you. So could we have a roll call, please, for the meeting?
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Here.
Kevin Zorda.
Here.
Virginia Higley. Here. Kelly Hemler.
Here.
Dylan Bridge.
Here.
Ken Kaufman.
Here.
Christopher No.
Here.
Okay, perfect. So applicants, can you come forward and state your name and address for the records? Welcome.
Good evening. I am Greg Wilson, Senior Landscape Architect with Fuss & O'Neill. My office is 59 Elm Street in New Haven, Connecticut.
Hi.
My name is Robert Walker. I'm a civil engineer with Fuss & O'Neill, also at 59 Elm Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Welcome. Could you give us a overview of your application?
Yeah, so we have a little presentation for 33 North River Street. As a project team, we work for the engineering firm, me and Robert, and then the development team is also here. If they are required to speak, they can introduce themselves formally. But Steve Cabrio and Lewis Brown of Honeycomb Development, and Richard Connor of Grava Properties. So we'll go through the site context, the existing conditions, the proposed project, and we have a couple of our technical plans we can show to get into more detail, and then happy to answer any questions. So the site is 33 North River Street, right here in Thompsonville. You can see where the town hall is on the map, so we're not too far away. We are between the Amtrak Hartford line and the Connecticut River, right at the end of North River Street, and the Bigelow Commons is on the other side of the train tracks. Little site history. So this site was the power generation facility for the Bigelow Carpet Mill. Constructed in the early 1900s. There were 4 former buildings on site, coal-fired power plant, incinerator house, steam house, and a pump house. It was coal-powered, and then they switched to oil power. And with that, there were some underground oil tanks brought in on site. Majority of the buildings on site were demolished in the mid-'70s, in 75 and 76. And as you'll see in some site photos, many foundations, the building remnants remain, and some rubble. The tanks were also removed, the oil tanks in the mid-'70s as well. And then through the environmental investigation, we also uncovered that fill and construction debris from other local projects in the mid-'70s was also brought on site. We have done some pretty significant soil testing and test pits and borings for environmental and geotechnical purposes. This map just shows all those dots represent a test pit or a geotechnical probe or soil sample. Those purple areas are petroleum hotspots. So that means there's soils that tested for petroleum byproducts in them. And then up in the upper right corner, that was the incinerator house, and essentially all the soils around that before the bank that leads down to the river are ash fill material that have accumulated over the years. So this site was the recipient of a $4 million brownfield cleanup grant awarded from DECD that was awarded in January. As part of that process, we had to provide a remedial action plan that outlined a summary of all the environmental testing done to date and recommended actions for cleanup. So the grant will be used for that. We're in the process of updating the remedial action plan. There were some minor site plan tweaks from the the application that we had submitted earlier for that grant. So that's getting updated, and then we're also enrolling in the Brownfield Remediation and Revitalization Program, which is a requirement of the grant recipients. Just a summary of the strategies in the remedial action plan. So those petroleum hotspots will be excavated and completely removed off-site and disposed of at the appropriate facilities. In those ashy areas that are just historical ash fill, those are going to be excavated, and those can actually remain on site, but they'll be put back and compacted in lifts for structural integrity, and then a geomembrane liner will also be added to that. And then really the majority of soils that are environmentally impacted on site, they're not bad enough to have to be removed from the site. They're just subject to direct exposure criteria limits. So the way to deal with that is you cap the site. You cap those with a minimum of a foot of clean material. And with the proposed project, that capping is really done with the proposed building footprint, the proposed parking, proposed hardscapes, and then the proposed landscape. And then obviously the removal of the rubble mounds and foundations. This is the existing condition survey, and I just highlighted the yellow areas. Those are the building remnants that remain on site. That big purple zone are really the limits of that debris piles that exist on site. So you can see it really is centered. It's a majority of the site and centered closer to the road, the existing road. And then the red line is an existing wall that's going to remain as part of our project. We've done some geotechnical assessments. We have mapping from the 50s where the wall was shown, so we know it's really beyond it's getting close to beyond its useful life. But that wall is going to remain as part of the proposed project, and then we're building a new wall behind it. So here are some existing photos. This is just the bird's eye looking towards the site from the river. In the bottom right, you can see that existing wall. If I squint, I can see some, I think, building foundations, and then the Amtrak line, and then Bigelow Commons is in the back there. Here are some pictures of entering the site. The top left is as you come into the site from North River. The top right is a little further down with the Amtrak on the right. The bottom left photo is from the other end of the site, looking back south down North River. And then the bottom right is the interior of the site before the existing slope down to the river. You can see a building remnant wall there. That's actually me in the photo. And then behind me, you can see kind of that that's one of the biggest rubble mounds that exist on site. Here are some of the existing foundations that remain on site. And then these are photos of that existing wall. So on the top left, you can see that there's quite a bit. That's where the delineated wetlands are. It's below the wall. So there's quite a bit of vegetation still there as it heads to the river. Here is the colored proposed site plan. And the yellow lines represent the regulatory lines. So the floodway is the Connecticut River floodway directly from FEMA mapping. That's the watermost line. The delineated flagged wetlands are shown on there. There's no work proposed within the wetlands. The dashed line that's inland of the wetland line is the 100-year floodplain, which is elevation 54. Again, there's no work proposed within the floodplain. Everything is upland of that. And then the dashed line on the bottom of the page, that's the 200-foot upland review zone. So I guess I'll start at the kind of page bottom by the railroad tracks. As you come into the site, we have a double-loaded parking corridor that extends the length of the site. There's about a 6-foot planted buffer between the parking lot and the property line. And then at the property line, there is a proposed fence to separate it from the Amtrak rail. There's a secondary parking lot that goes down in grade about 6 feet as you make your way down to to that second level parking lot. The big white L-shaped is the proposed building. The center of the building there that has a drop-off zone, and then there's those are two hardscape, kind of an entry amenity area, and then a rear outdoor area. Those connect to the middle of the building is really the amenity zone. So there's a really strong indoor-outdoor connection for the kind of main resident space there. There's a large staircase that goes down to a gray path. We're calling it the Riverwalk, and that is a fully accessible waterfront path that will be accessible by the public. There is on the left side of the page of the building, there's a door there and a walk that extends to the parking lot, and that connects to the Riverwalk, and that's a fully accessible route down to the Riverwalk, which then sits right behind our proposed wall. And that's 6 foot wide. And then you can see heading north at the end there's a terminus. And there's 2 benches there. And then in some of our preliminary ART meetings with the town, the idea was suggested to have some sort of sign that speaks to the site history, or some of the more ecological benefits of the site. So that's also proposed on the site plan. Final text to be determined, but that's kind of this nice terminus to that path. From the Riverwalk, there is you can kind of see that pink band. That's a 5-foot swale at the bottom of the slope that'll be planted with a conservation seed mix. So have a pretty wide variety of plants in there. And then there's a slope up from the Riverwalk to the rear of the building. That's that little darker green coloring. And then at the amenity terrace in the rear, that's more of a level lawn area for spill out purposes. Standard lawn. The slope will be a fescue mix that won't be mowed regularly, so it can really stabilize on the slope. And then in the front of the building, we have roughly around a 10-foot wide plant bed from the building to the sidewalk. There's a row of evergreen shrubs between the building face. There's all units, first floor apartments with big windows, so that'll provide some screening from the parking lot, and then another layer in front that has a variety of perennials and some lower ground cover plants that kind of give some texture and some seasonality to that large plant bed. And then a sidewalk kind of extending the entire length of that western parking edge. And on the next page, there's a cross section, which is really through the middle of the building, like from the existing wall up through those 2 terraces. And we gave it some color to help understand the existing and proposed conditions. So the light grayish brown color, that's the existing contours at the section cut. The dash line represents the existing contours and grade. So you can see it slopes up from that existing wall that exists by the river's edge. We show the three water levels: the high water mark, the 100-year, and then the 500-year floodplain levels. So you can see that the proposed wall, which is the white modular block wall, is above that 500-year floodplain elevation. And then the lighter beige color represents the largest rubble mound pile, so it kind of gives you the minimum and maximum of the existing slopes that exist on the site. And then the darker brown color is the fill area. So we're really leveling out the building pad and that exterior amenity zone, and then it slopes down to the swale and river walk with a fence and our new wall behind the existing. And then this is the technical site layout plan. Is there any, I guess, I kind of talked about the major elements on that colored plan. Is there anything you wanted to specifically talk about on the site plan?
If you wanted to get into snow storage now, we could do that, or you could talk about that later on.
Okay, yeah, sure. So we have our proposed parking lot, which is asphalt, special paving for the drop around zone, the drop-off zone and the front and rear terrace. So there's 2 snow storage areas that we have. One is on the north end, and it's really a level shoulder that's been created. It's about 6 feet wide. It's between 2 proposed trees. The proposed shrubs are behind that. And then a secondary larger area at the end of that lower parking lot. That's also a fairly level area on the site that also has a little more room. So the circulation as you come in from North River, it still functions as a 2-lane road. And then at the north end, it connects back into the existing, it's about a 12-foot wide pavement width for the existing River Street. So that still allows for the full functionality of kind of a road through for the adjacent properties to the north, and then allows for a full parking lot. And then the drop-off zone just allows for drop-off, deliveries. People order food now all the time and get it delivered. So sort of that really just a very convenient thing, and right at the center of the building. And then Robert can get into we have the site grading and drainage plans, if you want to go through that.
Absolutely. So as Greg kind of got into with our sections, the site drains from the east to the west. We have a series of inlets inside the eastern parking lot, which collect stormwater and then direct them to 2 proposed water quality units. And I'll actually skip ahead 1 slide here. Located on the east edge of the building, one on the north and one on the south. These provide the water quality treatment for the site, and then water that overflows from those or from the lower parking lot then continues down where it goes through a hydrodynamic separator, which basically spins the water to remove contaminants before ultimately it continues down to discharge through the proposed wall into the Connecticut River. As far as the lower parking lot, as Greg mentioned, that's approximately 6 feet lower. And then we have the slope in the back grading down towards the river, has a level pad for the walk, and then the swale, which collects incidental flows coming down that slope, as well as the flows from the walk itself, which then connects to that same discharge into the river. As far as overall cut and fill from the site, we are in a fill condition, and that's largely due to the remedial action plan and the need to cap the site. So as much material as we are able to leave in place and then provide that additional fill, whether it be asphalt, asphalt subbase, building foundations, or a foot of topsoil in locations, that's really where that fill is coming from in order to cap that environment or environmentally sensitive material. And I think that's all I have on grading. As far as erosion and control during construction, we've been working with the town wetland staff to try to make sure we're providing adequate erosion control throughout the site. We have along the river's edge and at the top of it'll start at the top of the existing wall, and as the proposed wall is built, it will then move on top, a line of silt fence reinforced with hay bales to catch any flows coming down that slope. Additionally, at the top of the slope, we have another line of silt fence to try to prevent surface flows from flowing down and potentially eroding that slope. There will be inlet protection at all of the existing and proposed catch basins in the vicinity of the site. Additionally, we'll have a construction entrance at the south end of the site for vehicles entering. That construction entry's exact location will move during construction as they're repaving to make sure we're maintaining access along North River Road for the duration and not impacting the residents further north. There are several soil stockpiles on site as materials brought on before it's dispersed and spread, and those will also be reinforced with silt fence and hay bales. And then back to you, Greg.
All right. And the proposed landscape plan, we have a variety of native cultivars and naturalized plant species. In addition to the conservation seed mix I mentioned, there's the fescue mix for the slope, and then a fescue lawn mix for the flatter lawn areas. The proposed trees on site are oaks and lindens. That evergreen hedge I mentioned, that's really providing some screening for the units and from the parking lot. That's inkberry. And then there's clusters of other larger shrubs spread out throughout the site. They're really focused, the kind of the larger shrubs, on the northern property line to offer some screening on that edge. And then in the rear of the building where the grades will expose some more of that building as the grades drop down against the building facade. We have some larger shrubs and some bayberry and witch hazel to kind of grow up and provide that just larger plant buffer and some screening, and then also just have some more habitat value for the riverside of the proposed project. And then we have the photometric plan that was done on the next slide. And I will focus on, I guess, starting at the Riverwalk, there's a series of low just path lights that will be about a foot tall. Those are on the waterside edge, so the light's shining towards the upland, not towards the river or the wetlands. They're really just like spot illumination, so you can see from the photometric there's no spill behind them towards the wetlands or the river. And then the accessible path that comes up on the southern side is largely lit by building-mounted lighting. And then there's actually, no, it's all building-mounted lighting, so we were able to still provide light levels for that and not encroach on the property line, so there's no light spill on the northern property line towards the Connecticut River or the wetlands, or on the eastern side, and there's a small portion at the River Street entrance that spills into the public way over there from the site lighting. As I mentioned, the proposed building, this yellow zone that's kind of the main amenity zone. It's a 4-story building. Mix of studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. The elevations and the design of the building really lean heavily into the mill aesthetic and the history of the site. So here are some proposed elevations, and then we have some proposed renderings from the architect. You can see the use of materials and kind of the articulation of the building is really speaking to that mill aesthetic. Taking into context the Bigelow Mill across the street. Here's a view of the facade. And then that's a view in the back with that amenity terrace to slope down in the Riverwalk. And that will conclude our presentation. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Next, we'll call for members of the HC staff to ask questions and comments. First, on June 17th, you were here with your application to discuss the legislative decided to do a public hearing. So a few people did ask some questions. Sorry, I'll repeat that. So back on June 17th, you were here going over your application, and a couple of us asked some questions. So just for the public, and since we decided to be a public hearing, we'll re-ask those questions. And some of them, I think you kind of answered already, but we're just going to re-ask them anyways, just to get them back in the record. So Commissioner Higley, do you want me to read them or just?
Oh, go ahead.
All right. So Commissioner Higley asked if the Riverwalk would be open to the public.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Zorda asked if there was going to be a boat launch on site. Commissioner Zorda asked if there was going to be a boat launch on site.
No.
That's what I had. I asked about the dirt removal and where it was going to go and what you're going to do, and you said it was going to be taken off site or capped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, contaminated soils, depending on their classification, will either be removed from site or they will be capped on site.
Yeah. So that's good. Thank you. And I did ask about the entrances. There's one, they're in the front and the back and the sides. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Commissioner Kaufman talked about the snow storage being unrealistic. Do you want to?
Okay, living in New England, I brought up the snow removal. On the very far, let's say, would be, correct me if I'm wrong, the eastern side, where there's like a little dog leg going to the lower parking lot, you had that shown as the snow storage area, and then also on the lower parking lot up to the building, you had another snow storage area, and where you had everything for the snow storage areas, you also had trees and bushes. So my concern was starting at the entrance, going the distance of the parking lot to store the snow down there where the little dog leg is going to the lower parking lot, I thought was pretty much unrealistic. And I see now that you had indicated that if it was full, that you were going to have a third party come in and take it out. Being a throughway to the other houses, I don't know if I'm getting off track. If it gets excessive, is it going to hamper those people from getting to their houses? Because that's where you have both of your storage areas are at the far side, where that is a throughway to the other residents on the other side.
Aren't they going to be on the road?
Yeah.
The people are going to take the road, and the snow piles around their property, I think.
I walked, myself personally, I walked it the other day to see where the road is, to see where the railroad is and everything else, to where they would possibly store the snow, and the houses are right on the other side of where the turn is, correct?
You're talking on the north end.
Yes.
Yeah, on the north end, there is a neighboring residence just further north of the property line. And so the snow storage area is proposed west along that kind of northwest curve along the edge there. That said, to get to their house, they will stay along the eastern edge of the property and drive in that way to the further residences. So the snow storage is proposed kind of on that sloped drive down to the lower lot. And then if that gets excessive, that's where they can stockpile as the trucks are coming to remove it, for that time it takes to get it offsite.
I guess what you had just said, something about the road.
Wasn't there a road?
No,
Regular
that
road?
is the road, correct? The parking lot is
Yeah.
the road.
Oh, okay.
So there is no road anymore.
Okay, I didn't-
So that was my thing is
realize
that
that.
something the town would be responsible for with the snow removal? Since is it technically an easement going through there?
Hi, I'm Steve Caprio from Honeycomb Real Estate Partners.
There we go.
So hopefully I can answer this a little better. Technically, this is a private road right now, owned by the residences, including this parcel. What we're planning to do, the road currently sits closer to Amtrak lines than we currently have it. We've expanded the quote-unquote road in front of ours to a true two-lane road, 12 feet on each side, with parking on either side, as you'd see kind of on a street. So in doing so, the road meets back up with where the original road was. And with the snow removal, we'll be coming in, plowing, removing as they plow. Normally they'll plow, they'll have a truck behind it and just take it away if it's really an excessive snowstorm. We would not plan on in any way hindering folks from getting to the residence. There technically aren't any easements, but there's really an easement by right, and we would not be cutting off the residences to the north because that's just not appropriate to do. Did that answer it?
Yeah, pretty much, because seeing that both snow storage areas are on the northernmost part, like you said, if it gets excessive,
They'd remove-
Totally agree. And I mean, when it's going to be an excessive snowstorm, the plan would just be that the group that's coming to do the plowing, they know it's going to get removed. It's not going to get piled down in the snow storage because we would have no way to.
I'm just concerned
Put a
about
foot
the
of
other
snow.
Yeah,
residents.
how do we quantify what excessive is?
Yeah.
Well, excessive would be our inability to put in the snow storage areas. So our residents are also going to have to get their cars out.
Right.
They're also going to have to get out of the parking lot. So if they're not able to do that because our snow is going to take up too much space, that's excessive. So in which case we would be taking all the snow out of there to make sure the road is always available to be traversed either way for emergency vehicles and for the residents to the north and for our residents to get to the south.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may also add, the question about the road being an easement is also on staff's radar, and that will be a part, I imagine that's going to also be part of the discussion when it moves forward to planning and zoning.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because it's not really us, but, yeah. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Louis Brown from Honeycomb. And I just wanted to add one further fine point on this because one of the abutters to the north just brought it to my attention. Currently, the town plows and is actually storing snow in the way that you're suggesting it should not be snowed and sometimes is creating an impediment to the residents to the north. We, as private owners, have an obligation to our residents and now to our neighbors to make sure that that does not happen, and it will not happen. So we'll have a snow management plan, and that will be adhered to early and often.
Because doesn't the town use the very northernmost part as a turnaround, like for service vehicles, garbage trucks, and everything else?
That's zoning, yeah.
That's all zoning.
That's
We
all
can't
zoning,
really
yeah.
discuss
The point,
Yeah,
It's zoning.
yeah,
Just talking about stowing the snow up there.
yeah.
I guess the point that I'm just trying to make in super simplistic terms is it will be in a better shape with the private ownership than it is currently.
Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, we can't have back and forth. So the other question, we had one more question, which was Commissioner Hemler. Yeah, it was Commissioner Hemler. She asked about clear cutting of trees and potential effect this may have on the slope in the river. That was from us.
Yeah, so as far as the removal of the existing vegetation, a lot of that is necessitated by the environmental remediation as well as the development. So that is kind of the starting point, is to cap the site, you have to put, a minimum of a foot of fill, often a liner. So in order to accomplish that, the vegetation does need to be removed. To stabilize the site during construction, we've proposed some pretty beefy erosion control measures, especially along the river, by enforcing all of the silt fence with hay bales to allow for, if a large flow ever did occur, it holds it in place and prevents the silt fence from blowing out and releasing sediment to the river.
My question, is that going to be sufficient?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
sounds it anyways. Thank you. Did I get all the questions? Everybody?
I think according to my notes, it looks like you got them all.
Okay, perfect.
And Kelly, just adding, if it was to fail, it would be much more expensive for them to have to correct that than to put in the measures they need to not.
I get it. I just want to think ahead, and I think there's quite a bit of a slope there.
Yeah.
Can I just add one more question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, now that we got the questions from last meeting,
Okay.
now we can continue to ask questions for this meeting.
So they're going to be adding a building and a whole lot of parking lot, so that's impervious, correct? And what about that? Because don't we normally ask them to, if they're going to make it impervious, then they have to restore or create a wetland somewhere else?
But they're not disturbing the wetland. This is the upland review area.
Okay.
So the upland review area is 200 feet from the river,
Yeah.
which basically is from the river, most of their site, to the road.
Basically to the train
Yeah,
tracks.
they're working in the upland review area,
Okay.
not in the wetlands.
Okay. Thank you.
Which is double what it normally is
Yes.
because it's by the river.
Right. Right. Does that answer? Yes, thank you. Did anybody else have a question or comment before I turn it over to the audience?
I have one question. I don't know where the lines are on whether this is a valid question for our commission or not.
We'll let you know.
Okay. So during snow removal, I know that whole Thompsonville area is very tight. Where would cars get relocated during snow removal?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that
Is
would
there
be
a-
P and Z.
That's definitely more of a planning and
Okay,
zoning
that's what
question.
I thought. I didn't know. Okay.
okay,
All right.
that's
Then.
okay.
I had that in the back of my mind, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be planning and zoning. Okay.
One more question.
Sure.
Okay, so you're going to be planting trees, oaks and lindens, I don't know what those are. How big will they be when you first plant them? Because, I mean, obviously it takes a long time for a tree to become large, and maybe you could answer that. But
I'll kick that one to you, Greg.
Oh, thanks, Robert. So we've specified them as a 3-inch caliper. Probably those will be between 12, I don't know, around 12 feet tall, 12 to 15 feet tall when at that size
Okay.
when brought to site.
Okay.
That would be a ball and burlap. They're big enough to be that size.
But, so you're not putting in saplings and calling them trees?
No, that's
No.
a good, that's a good-sized tree.
Okay, yes, no, 12 foot is big. And the buffer between the residents on the north and the property, I see you've got some trees there. Is this a sufficient amount of buffering for the
Planning and
resident?
zoning as well.
Oh, okay, okay, never mind, sorry.
Okay, that's
I just
fine.
thought it had to do
That's
with,
fine.
I had to do with vegetation, so, okay.
That's fine. Anybody on this side?
You've answered most of my questions. I just had a few things that I wondered about. And this is very minuscule, but I come up with on Fuss and O'Neill on page 5. They say, to ensure these measures continue to operate adequately over time, the following maintenance procedures should be followed. I'd be more comfortable with shall be followed.
Yeah.
That's very minuscule, but you know, you're great, but 20 years down the road when they go to sell it, next people might not be. So we have to guard our wetlands. And the only other thing I thought about that I didn't hear mentioned was that under stormwater drainage, second paragraph, there are 3 different types of filtrations, and it goes on. Then it says, at the end it says, with this system in place, stormwater is treated and maintenance will be conducted on the system at least twice a year. I'm assuming, staff, that that's the applicant's responsibility, not the town's, right?
Yes.
It is my understanding that that is the applicant's responsibility.
Thank you. You've done a great job of presenting. I've got all my answers. Thank you.
Anybody else done? Ken? No? Chris? No? Did you want to? So I just had a couple comments. So I could, by reviewing the application and all, I could see you've been working on this for a few years and had multiple phases in that. You've been working with DEEP and other state agencies regarding the Connecticut River and contaminations, so that's great to see that. But what I do have is that in our packets, we have some documents. We don't, and I realize we don't have the complete documents, because we have like pages 2 to 4, 18 and 19, 5 to 11, 2 to 6. So we're kind of missing those documents. And you do mention Phase 3 environmental site assessment and a remedial action plan and soil management, which we didn't get in our packets. So I'm sure they're probably in the master packet. But the way it works is we get our packets delivered to our home. That's what we use for our determinations. We don't go looking at the master packets. And we also take information from what's being said in the meetings. So I'm just wondering if you can give us a little bit more detail about your Phase 3 environmental site assessments and your remedial action plans and soil management, because we don't have all that information. There's information that would be helpful for us.
Yeah. So the environmental history on the site actually was through Fuss and O'Neill and the town of Enfield, where they did the Phase 1, Phase 2, and I believe the Phase 3. I am a landscape architect, and I did read the plan, and I did put
Some things in there.
these slides together. But so for the remedial action plan for the brownfields application, we provided a site plan and a grading plan, much less detailed than what was provided for this application. The main difference in that was the building was bigger, and I think we had a longer wall, proposed wall, because we were looking at balancing the cuts and fills, and there was a lot of excess soil. So, and there was a parking level lower in that building, so that was generating a lot more earthwork. Given that, the environmental recommendations in the remedial action plan are the same for this proposed less intensive site plan. And I really took this summary from that application. So the most, I guess, environmentally concerning materials are the petroleum hotspots, which were really just a direct result of
History.
the history of the site. So that has to get excavated. There's testing done during excavation to make sure you kind of get all the limits of that. These limits drawn are based on the sampling and borings that were done to date, which are all those dots. So those are really the only things that are for state testing levels that have to get dug up and removed. The ash fill areas by the incinerator, that's really why there's that kind of steep embankment down to the river beyond the existing wall, because over the 70 years or so that has built up. There's in a testing perspective, there's nothing. I think the most concerning is heavy metals. There's none of that in there. So the concerns for that are really more of a structural concern, and the recommendation for those areas are to excavate down to the limits of those soils, which vary from I think there was like 8 to 14 feet on site, and place back in 2-foot lifts and compact each lift so you get a much more stable soil profile. And then there's the geomembrane liner that goes on top of it, and then that's capped by a foot of clean material. And then the general construction rubble is classified as urban fill, urban material. Most of that can be crushed on site and reused as construction fill for sub-base layers. Obviously removing any kind of junk in there, and they kind of have to filter through it. Those were the kind of 3 main conditions out there. And so the building foundations obviously getting dug up, seeing what those limits are. The pink area is really that fill material, and really a strategy from you can see in the cross section is some of that material is going to be just moved from further up site to create the base for our proposed level zones, and then it slopes off, and then that's all capped with clean stuff to meet state exposure criteria levels. So those are like the 3 main things. Be happy to send that. It is digitally here, but that's kind of the 3 main conditions out there.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Is there post-construction testing of those hot spots? Yes. For how long?
There's I don't know for how long, but during the removal, that's kind of like an independent scope of work. Is like the cleanup's done, and that's by certified people, and they test during and make sure that all the limits are met.
Creeping back up.
So Steve.
Hi, Steve Caprio, Honeycomb. This is actually, so for Honeycomb, this is our 3rd brownfield that we'll be doing. The first one in West Hartford is completely done. The one in New Haven, all of the remediation work is done, but the building's not complete. So it's just hot in my brain right now of what they do. As they're out there, they're going to be testing before they remove any soil. They're going to confirm this is what it is, or if it's not, they're going to take it off the right way, or maybe it doesn't have to go anywhere. They're going to do all the earthwork in that part. Let's say it's petroleum. They're going to get all the petroleum out. Once they're down to a level where they're not seeking anymore, they're going to grab more tests. They're going to send those off to get tested. When the results come back, if it's clean, great. If it's not, they go down further until it is clean. So that testing really happens throughout the project. At the end of the project, any areas where they have to do further testing on the limits, they would test the limits and say, yes, we were correct with the limits that we set. There's no more petroleum-based. There's no more of this here. And at the very end of the project, that's where the LEP, which will be FUS, just not Greg, will be creating that final report for DEEP and for DECD. And then following that, there's also wells that get installed, and they test the water for a full year. So it's 4 separate tests, one each season, because there's varying water levels throughout that time. We don't actually have any concerns with the water right now. It didn't come in the reports, but we still have to do it post-construction.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so one more I had was on page 5 of 11, whatever that was from, I don't know. There was a statement, and it said, Commissioner approval of an engineered control section 22A 133K 2F 2C of the remediation standard regulations provides a variance from compliance with the pollutant mobility criteria when an engineer control is used as a release area, provided the request demonstrates to the commissioner's satisfaction that the eligibility requirements have been met. So is that the state?
I'm sorry, which document is this?
I'm not sure, because it says page 5 of 11, so I don't know what document. Let me see. Hey, 5 of 11?
Can I give you mine?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
It says Fuss and O'Neill on top.
Okay, so this is part of a wrap. So that's,
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
have
so
getting
that
paid,
would
so-
be the state.
That would be the state, okay.
And by enrolling into the BRRP program, you're required to show that you've done all that.
Okay, perfect. I was just wondering who that was. Thank you. Okay, so those are my questions. Anybody else have questions? Did the staff want to make a comment, or before I go to the public?
One second, please. There we go. All right. So just to kind of like recap what the applicant has done since their previous presentation at the 6/17/25 regular or special meeting, they did submit a revised stormwater report and site plans responding to staff comments. Some of the revisions were smaller in nature, such as correcting draft errors in the site plan notes. And other changes were made in the site plan, including adding silt fencing around the entirety of the property, as well as stake tables along the Connecticut Riverside of the property on the site preparation plan, which is actually more erosion sediment controls than I had originally asked for. So they're going above and beyond what I'm already asking. Another revision that was made on the site layout plan page includes a smaller stow storage pile in the northernmost part of the property, as we had already addressed. And they also included a note on the bottom of that page of the site plan noting that any snow that cannot be stored on site shall be taken off-site by a third party. So they are actively working and addressing on these comments as we give it to them. And although the comments by staff have been addressed, there's been no more comments from engineering, no comments from fire, no comments from traffic. And I believe you guys should have gotten this before. I just wanted to point this out. I just have two more minor comments. On page CE 101, I had asked to remove the disturbed 100-foot upland review area note under your utility note. And as well as on page CP 101, this was their site preparation plan. I noticed that there was some grubbing and clearing that was shown beyond the silt fencing north of the existing wall. I take it that was probably just a minor drafting error, taking a layer from one page, putting it on another. So I'm going to ask that when they do turn in another site plan, that's just shifted to include the grubbing and clearing within the erosion sediment controls.
Thank you for your time.
We read everything before we came, so you've answered a lot of.
You don't have Karen plan? Paperwork. Uh-oh.
Are you representing the commission? Individually?
Have that document on this, and it might be easier to show some of the pictures that are on the back on the screen. How would I?
You plug it into the computer back.
There's copies for you guys too, at least one. give them the developer?
Yep.
Thanks. Karen LaPlante, 166 North Maple Street. I originally picked up these plans from the planning office to review them for the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission was unable to have a special meeting to review my comments and review the plans. We don't meet until next week. And so these are just my personal comments that I felt I needed to bring forward tonight. The first 4 comments refer specifically to the plans, and the date on my plans were 6/19/2025. Existing larger trees noted on the current plan include 22 deciduous trees between 20 and 48 inches in diameter. The total number of trees to be removed is noted, but practically the whole 3.86 acres will be cleared and grubbed to prepare for the contamination remediation. Per the landscape plan, LP 101, only 5 original trees will remain. Their diameters are 24 inches, 32 inches, 36 inches, 36 inches, and 48 inches. The plan calls for only 9 new trees to be planted, of only 2.5 to 3 inch caliper. The 9 trees are what zoning requires for the parking lot alone. None of the trees will be planted along the riverfront. Although zoning requirements have been changed to allow trees and/or shrubs, I would like to see a majority of trees versus shrubs, and trees of larger caliber should be considered. I understand the tree loss and the replacement is not normally an inland wetland issue. I am concerned with the loss of trees and vegetation within this project, how it will affect the water temperatures, riverbank temperatures, and altered environment for any endangered species and their habitat. If you look on, did you put that thing in? If you go to the back, you'll see the National Natural Diversity Database map.
Is that it right there?
Yep. Just make it bigger, and then I'll go to the last page.
Oh, no, we just plugged it in.
Yeah, no,
Can I do that? All right.
no, it's only applicants that are supposed to have access. And
It's just for clarity.
Take it out.
Gotcha, that's what
Okay.
People can take it out.
It's just so they
take
can
it.
see it. Fine. Really? So if you look at the page 7, I believe it is, you'll be able to, you can show the stuff, but I can't have access. Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right. So this is the Natural Diversity Database, and the approximate site location of this project is circled. So you can see that there are state and federal listed species within that area. So it is an area of concern. And if you go to the very next page, this riverfront is also listed as a freshwater mussel review area for state-listed species. And those are the maps that I found on the state website. And you can see the Bigelow buildings there, and I've circled the approximate location of the site. And those are state-listed species in the yellow up there. It is important that a report and/or environmental review be requested from DEP and submitted on the record to determine if the contamination, remediation, or redevelopment of this site will have a permanent impact on these species, or if procedures could be improved to benefit the endangered species. I believe this is a requirement when state money is involved. As environmental reviews can take a long time, I suggest this process be started sooner than later so the project can continue to move forward. The conditions of approval for this application should include any recommendations from this report. I'm concerned with erosion, herbicides, fertilizers, pesticide applications on this project. After remediation is complete, the steeper sloped lawn areas appear to have a fescue combination mix which have a shallower root mass than the Black Beauty original tall fescue blend, if you can go to the next page, that will be less on the less sloped lawn area. The two varieties of fescue that make up most of the steep slope planting area have a root mass of 3 inches and 12 to 18 inches. That's about 66% of the grass that's recommended in that steep slope area. The Black Beauty Tall Fescue Blend seeded lawn area, which appears to be almost level, can have a root system of up to 4 feet deep, as you can see on this document from the manufacturer or the supplier. Erosion of these lawn areas should be of utmost concern to maintain water quality along the river. Limitations should be considered on the application of herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers to avoid chemical and nitrogen runoff into the river. Proper application rates should be revised to meet Black Beauty standards for new lawns, 5 pounds per 750 square feet, not the 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet, I believe is what they have on the plan, which is also cut and pasted on that page. The small and only designated snow areas for this project is on the north end of the property, and the location has been adjusted in this new plan to be between 2 of the new trees and in front of the 5 new bayberry shrubs. Winter snow piles will probably negatively impact the health of those new plants. This snow storage area is only 9 feet from the existing house to the north and appears to provide less than 60 square feet of snow storage area. This snow storage area is insignificant when considering the non-building impervious surface area is 103,280 square feet. How high will a snow pile be, and how will the melting snow affect the house to the north? If the solution to this issue isn't making the project smaller, then there should be no snow at all stored on site. Salt applications should be minimized, as most of the runoff will make its way into the Connecticut River without further treatment. Some sort of agreement as to the snow plowing responsibilities of this town road within the project area should be required and registered on the land records of this property to avoid maintenance responsibility issues in the future. Page CG 102, next page, shows the STMH 12 manhole, and if you look on your full plans, you can see where it is on your full plans on CG 102. But the detail of that modular wall and drainage pipe location is shown on this document with the CD 506. The elevation of the outfall of the 18-inch pipe, shown in orange, is 54.3 feet, and the elevation of the high water mark of the river is at 42 feet, the lower blue line of that diagram. There is no detail on how the water will be handled as it drops 12 feet or more, depending on the height of the river. Erosion in this area should be of a concern, not only for the riverfront, but the effects on the existing and new modular wall. Further design specifications should be required for this area prior to approval. The following comments are concerning items discussed in the remedial action plan by Fuss & O'Neill dated September 2024, submitted with this application, and the construction activities discussed in the plan. The detail directly from the document is in italics in the print, and underlined areas are added for emphasis only. To easily distinguish my comments, they appear in bold on this document. So I don't think I want to read all the reference pages to that document. It doesn't sound like you got the complete document, but it was posted online. So I use the online version. And so when you're looking this stuff up, you can go to page 12, and it gives a description of the site. And I do just want to review this a little bit, but I think they've already acknowledged that it's a different site that the remedial action plan was created for. It was going to be 200 plus apartments, 4,100 square feet of parking. Garage will occupy the ground floor. Paved surface parking will be located on the east side of the building. Additional paved surface parking will be located on the north side of the building. The outdoor amenity area has changed from what that original document shows, and I think it's on the next page of our document. No, the next one. Go to the next one. Yeah, that's the original one that was included with the that the report is of. The remedial action plan is working on this site, not the one that you're currently looking at. So these site plans, dated 6/19, are not the plan described in the remedial action plan. There is no ground floor parking garage, no access road to the parking garage from the south side of the building, and there does not seem to be a retaining wall that extends the full length of the riverfront. How do the significant changes to this site plan affect the handling of the contaminants outlined in the report? Additional issues are pointed out further below. So now you can go back to the previous page. I guess I scanned them in the wrong order. So on page 12, section 5.3, the petroleum release area, the impacted soil at AOC 4 is located at a deeper depth interval between 10 and 18 feet below the ground surface. Impacted soil in this area of concern will be addressed during the site activities in conjunction with riverbank slope stabilization. But it also mentions AOC 4 as the incinerator ash, which it has approximately 9,000 square feet at depths of up to 18 feet. They're estimating, it says it is anticipated that the quantity of soils containing ash exceeding arsenic and lead baseline RSR concentrations is approximately 6,000 cubic yards. The riverbank slope in this area is approximately 15 to 18 feet in height. It talks further about the geotechnical study identified the slope to be marginally stable and the current condition and recommended stabilization as part of a future redevelopment effort. The site design provides for installation of a modular block wall or sheet pile bulkhead to be constructed along the riverbank. That's no longer going to happen. The new wall will extend the entire length of the riverbank along the site. That's not going to happen. The top of the wall elevation will range from an elevation of 60 to 69. Excavation of the ash fill along the interval where the wall will be installed will be required. So all that's going to have to be taken out. And is it going to affect the wetlands? That's your decision. I don't know if it didn't seem that you had many questions at all on this process of cleaning up this site. And this is where the damage is going to be done. So the petroleum impact soils at the AOC4 appear to be in the same area as the incinerator ash. Are the contaminated soil and ash intermixed? How will this be handled? The section also discusses the new modular wall that is supposed to be installed the entire length of the riverbank along the site. The current plan shows the new modular wall will extend only partially along the riverbank and leaves approximately 350 feet of riverfront with no wall, and specifically in the area of the AOC4, the most contaminated area, there is no wall. The section also mentions a geotechnical study that identified the slopes in this area as marginally stable and recommended stabilization as part of future redevelopment effort. How is this going to be accomplished? That information does not appear on the plan, so it can be properly evaluated by this commission. Will the petroleum impacted soils be separated and removed from the site, similar to AOC 1 and AOC 03 and 05? This report leaves this question unanswered at this time, and as this area is in close proximity to the river, this is, or at least should be, a concern of this commission. The next item is the reference pages. It references pages 13 to 14. The pollutant mobility criteria. And it talks about the components of the remedial approach at AOC 4 and for the incinerator ash, and they give 2 different combination alternatives of how that's going to be handled. Soil management and rendering ash-laden fill environmentally isolated under the new building. Ash-laden fill at AOC 4 that is excavated for site earthwork activities, building construction, and installation of the new wall will be relocated under the new building slab. Fills between 3 and 7 feet are required below portions of the northwest and western areas of the new building. Again, remember, they're talking about the parking garage, not the building where people are going to be living right above it. And it talks about the ash-laden fill from ALC4 will be relocated to the fill areas below the slab and rendered environmentally isolated according to the regulations. The other option, too, is installation of a PMC engineered control between the building and the retaining wall. So that's down in that lower area where you see that original incinerator. An impermeable geomembrane liner will be installed over the ash-laden fill remaining in the area between the building and the retaining wall to prevent water infiltration through the fill. Well, that wall is not going to be there on the new plan. So I think you've got a lot of questions that need to be answered here. So on option 1, placing the ash under the new building slab will render the contamination environmentally isolated if the ash above approximately 6,000 cubic yards is described as geotechnically marginally stable. How will moving it below a 4 and partially 5-story building render it stable and provide proper structural support for foundation walls and slab? Ash is not easily compacted to proper levels to provide structural support for buildings. And remember, it is no longer a parking garage slab. It is a 4-story building on a slab. With the ADS StormTech infiltration system design, some storm water will infiltrate into the ground, possibly pass through the contaminated ash below the foundation or in the area of AOC4, which is about 120 feet northwest of the infiltrators, and carry the contaminants to the river through the groundwater. Also remember, there is petroleum contamination in this ALC4 area, and how will this be separated from the ash contaminants, or will all the contaminants be left in this area? If option 2 is chosen, an impermeable membrane liner over the ash between the building and the retaining wall. If the retaining wall isn't the full length of the riverfront, how will the membrane isolate the polluted area and prevent water infiltration either here or out to the river? Additional comments on this report include regarding the rest of the remedial actions discussed in the remedial action plan. How does this change the final plan that there's no basement, no modular wall along the complete riverfront, and other changes that may have been made from the original CS 101 draft plan shown in the appendix and what I showed you earlier on the screen? The other changes that are made from the CS 101 draft plan shown in the appendix how does it affect the recommendations on meeting the pollutant mobility criteria, the direct exposure criteria, on site handling of the impacted soil and groundwater monitoring? The concern is the pollutant mobility criteria appears to discuss the ability of pollution to go through into a public area, a residential area. So if there's no ground floor parking garage, how is it going to affect people who are living right above this polluted area? Have those recommendations changed due to the changes in the plans? Has DEEP approved the remedial action plan knowing the site has significantly changed since it was written in September of 2024? And what will the approval process entail? Shouldn't you understand the complete process that will be followed before approving this plan? While on-site handling of the impacted soils is performed as stated in section 5.6, page 16, will the piles of contaminated and/or excavated fill, approximately 18,000 cubic yards, be covered with an impervious surface every night so the contamination will not be migrating to neighboring properties through the air due to windy conditions or the groundwater due to rain? How will this be monitored? Conditions regarding these issues should be added to the approval of this application. In conclusion, this parcel has proven to be extremely difficult to develop. Between the dumping of various fill materials, contamination from previous industrial uses by Bigelow Carpet Mills or others, and overgrown and unmanaged vegetation for probably 50 years or more, have all added to the level of difficulty. I applaud this developer in trying to clean up this site, but I don't want to lose sight of the environmental impact the remediation may also cause to this area. Care and proper procedures must be required. followed and taken seriously to avoid contaminating abutting properties during construction. I urge the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency to take their time with this review of this project and add the items of concern that I have raised within these comments to the conditions of approvals as they seem appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you, just to add a note, if you do continue the hearing, Conservation may be coming up with comments on Tuesday night. We'll be reviewing it there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so anybody else from the audience that would like to speak?
May the developer respond to some of what's just...
Oh, yeah, we're going to have you come up. Okay, thank you. Definitely, you're next. So, we have the audience and the applicants. Could you please come forward so you can respond to the questions? And
Hello, Steve Caprio from Honeycomb Real Estate Partners.
Hi.
Louis Brown from Honeycomb Real Estate Partners.
Hi.
All right, I will try to get to all those points. There was a lot said, so.
Yeah, there was.
I guess I'll start off, I agree it is a very difficult site. It's been made more difficult through the years, and without proper remediation, this site will continue to be a hazard as it currently exists, with unstable soils, with no infiltration protection for the river, with no sort of remediation going on at all for water that comes down, for runoff, or anything of the sort. I'd like to start by noting that, yes, the plan has changed, but it has changed for the better. By not putting in the parking garage, we have drastically limited the amount of excavation that we need to do on the site. We have also been able to regrade the northern end of the site to not need a seawall all the way down, which has helped us contain the site. It's helped us to stabilize those soils further from the bank of the river, and has helped us to make the drainage much more readily handleable by the site, and also allowing us to filter everything before it eventually hits the swale and then ultimately dumps in the river with any additional overflow. The foundation of the building is actually on rammed aggregate piers. What that is since there is so much fill on the site, in order to get to stable soil, it's about 19 feet down. 19 feet down is very stable, bearable soil. A rig comes in and it's going to put aggregate piers all the way down, and that is going to support the building. So technically, the building is supported by that, and it's the soil 19 feet down. The soil directly under the building is not actually holding the building up at all. That is stabilized and compacted basically to a PSI that's greater than concrete, but it's not actually holding up the building. All right.
Well, you're doing a good job, but the resident, the resident safety above.
Yeah, so for the resident safety, the way this building is engineered with the process stone that has to go down and the membrane that we'd have to put in on top of that, and then I think it's a 16-inch slab or so that goes down between 8 and 16 inches. This is a completely allowable capping by DEP and DECD that does not allow any of the contaminants to enter the building and doesn't put the residents at risk at all. There's also, we don't have a risk of radon here, but if we do, there'll be radon mitigation that basically takes it through fans through the roof so that no radon gets into the building.
And another point was raised about DEEP. The Brownfield Award does not get awarded without full review by DECD and DEEP. Both our team and the full DECD team, as well as the full DEEP team from all different disciplines, have reviewed our development. And I think the thing to highlight here is what Steve led with, which is the site as it currently exists, as you heard from the experts at Fuss and O'Neill, has a seawall that is, if not beyond, approaching the end of its useful life. The risk to the town, if this development is not allowed to go through, is much greater to the residents, to the river, to the health and safety of everyone around this development. What we are doing is providing cleaner water, better soil, more stable wall, more stable soils. And not to mention, though I know it's not within this commission's purview, but it's worth mentioning, economic development for the area of Thompsonville.
And then just along the lines of DEEP and DECD, this entire closeout of the remediation is done by an LEP, a licensed engineer or environmental professional from Fuss & O'Neill, who needs to basically create an entire report. It has to be approved by the state. They verify all of our reports throughout the process. And since there was a brownfield grant, all of our construction draws, they review every bit of information that comes in. They review all the tickets. They review exactly what soils were taken. Soil samples have to be collected, logged. We have to have logs from anywhere soil is disposed of. We have to have a complete layout and survey of what was done, the extensive pollution, what was where, what was done, and all that closeout material has to be presented and signed off by the state. So there's a lot of eyes on the project, so we don't intend to do anything that would endanger anybody, nor would we want to.
And one final point, and it goes back to something that Steve mentioned earlier in the evening. We've just completed a smaller but certainly as relevant development in New Haven that was also the recipient of a Brownfield Award that also had DEEP and DECD oversight, and we used the same RAM aggregate peer foundation system for the very same reasons, and a very similar remedial action plan that allowed both reuse of soils where appropriate and off-site deposits of soils to the appropriate off-site dumping facility where those soils appropriately were supposed to be taken off-site. So we're quite familiar with the rules and regulations and what's required. We would not have received the Brownfield Award but for the fact that we've received 2 in the last 12 to 18 months, and DECD and DEEP, I think, have confidence in the work that we do as developers, taking into account the safety of the residents and the town more generally. So we appreciate your time tonight. Just wanted to add those clarifying points.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, is there any questions from the staff, comments from the staff or commissioners? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think, I don't know how everybody feels about this, but I think with all of the information we had from the initial the last meeting we talked about this, some of the new information we've gotten tonight, and I guess the general size and scope of the project. I don't know how anyone feels about possibly taking a site walk. I know we talked about that last time. And the other thing I would say is, because we have all this information and probably want to review it, probably putting off a vote. The other thing, and the final thing, I guess, would be, I don't know about extending, how people feel about extending the public hearing so that, like, Conservation Commission hasn't had a meeting. I don't know. It might be helpful to, have more information. So,
Okay, so if we close the public hearing today, we cannot take in any more information.
Right, so
We're
I think
done
we should
receiving
keep-
information.
I think we should
If we
keep the-
keep it open, then we could,
Conservation.
go
I would
ahead.
suggest keeping it open so that we could, if anyone else does want to speak, they'll have that opportunity. Also, we'll have some time to just kind of go over everything we've gotten and, talk about it further.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I guess, I don't know if that's a motion to.
Does anybody else have any comments?
I agree with Chris. I think that everything has been well presented. I think Karen LaPlante's points were well taken, but I'm almost overwhelmed with all the new stuff that's just popped up, and I really would like a little bit more time to kind of go through it, so that I'm absolutely certain I have a good handle on how to make a decision. That's just me.
Okay. Ken?
I agree with what you said about the information we just received. But as for a site walk, the pictures that we have are probably from the fall or the winter, where there's no foliage. I went down there. There's no way right now we're going to be walking around out there. I'm sorry.
And frankly,
Nope,
it almost
that ain't
doesn't
happening.
matter because it's going to be what's going to be cleared out of there. It really doesn't. You're not going to see the oil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotta see the contamination.
I agree. I think we should keep the public hearing open and talk about it next meeting.
Can we ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Sorry, Steve Caprio from Honeycomb. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question on what the new information was that was received tonight that was not provided previously. We've provided some clarifications on answers to certain things in the site plan, but as far as new information from a professional who is qualified to speak on the matter, not speaking about myself, more so the engineers involved, there has been no testimony or any sort of presentation by anybody else that would have brought new information that is kind of.
So we can use information that comes from the public. We can use information that you guys tell us when we make our decisions.
Sure, no, totally understand. I was just wondering if you could clarify what it was.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's information we received from Karen.
Yep.
And I'm thinking it's more volume than.
In the volume to just relook at everything.
Karen's qualifications are.
Yeah, and so we don't have to use information that we receive.
No?
You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to use it. You can use it. It's up to you.
And the other thing to keep in mind, if we were to close tonight, the public hearing, we don't have to make a decision tonight.
Right, but we can't
Yeah, we can't receive anything.
or talk about any more information.
Yeah.
We would only be able to come in and
Yeah.
make a vote.
I think that hearing what conservation has to say won't harm anybody. But what I was going to say is I didn't realize that we didn't have all the pages that were in the master packet. I go on the assumption that I get everything that's in the master packet. So I would like to go home and like if everybody else feels differently, that's fine. But I'd like to go home and look at the master packet and see what I
So
don't
if you
have.
do that, then you have to come back and tell us what you read and what you learned and everything else, because we all have to be looking at the same information.
If
You
we
can't-
had iPads, that would help that.
Yes.
If I
We
may,
all have to look at the same, okay, so we all have to make our decisions
forget it.
based on the same information that we all hear and know. We can't go off and look in the encyclopedias. We can't go off and look anywhere else.
You're right. I
We can't
stand
go
corrected.
anywhere. We have to have the
I
same
stand
information
corrected. Forget
to
it.
make our decisions.
if I may add a comment.
Yes.
So the information that you had received in your packets, they were not meant to be submissive of any materials that the applicant has given to us. The pages that we had supplied to you as town staff, they were the overall summaries of all the legwork that the applicants had given us when they had submitted the application. Some of the more technical details may have not been there because they may have been deeper in the reports and they were talking about some of the more technical terms along with the with some of the things such as the remedial action plan. But again, the materials that were supplied to you all were these summaries of what each plan is, what each report is, and give the overall idea of what
That's
is within
fine.
them.
But I just don't want
Thank you
people
for
going off
clarification.
and
Nope, not
looking
gonna
at
happen.
information and researching.
From now on, I will check.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that that was that was made clear to everybody.
Okay, thank you. So is that
I think,
understandable?
just respectfully as a request, I think we would request that the public hearing be closed tonight based on the turnout from the public, the notices that were given, the information received tonight. I definitely understand if you feel you need more time to review before voting, but our respectful request would be that the public hearing is closed tonight.
Well,
I mean,
it's up to us.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it.
I don't think there's any harm in going.
In rereading your site plans and
Yeah.
stuff?
My quick question is we're working off new information, right? This isn't new information coming from your professional employees, the engineers, whatever. This new information is coming from a memo from a resident, correct?
Correct.
So we're going to take everything into consideration from a resident other than from the professionals. That's like saying the sky is falling. I don't understand why we're going to keep the public open after hearing everything from the professionals versus one memo from one person during public comments. Just the way I feel.
Okay.
If the government is giving them a grant, they've done their due diligence to check all the information in front of them. Wouldn't they have asked all those questions before giving millions of dollars out for site remediation? That's how I feel.
Okay, that's good.
May I just add to that for a second? And excuse me, Mr. Renaud, just to be responsive to your, and I respect your position. I appreciate the time that the whole commission has put in and wants to continue to put in. Please know it is invaluable. I don't minimize that at all. I used to sit on the public side, on your side of the table. So please know that this is coming from appreciation. The flip side of that is, as developers, and to the point that Mr. Kaufman just made, we have been working with DEEP and DECD for the better part of the last year. We received the highest award in the state, $4 million, for this site after their review of our plan. The governor held his press conference on the riverbank, shifting it from Hartford to Thompsonville. We have gone under a lot of scrutiny based on our plans. There is no new information tonight other than, and respectfully, what the public has provided, and I don't minimize that at all. But to continue the hearing open prolongs and elongates all other approvals for us, and every moment of delay in a real estate development puts that real estate development at risk. And here, as Mr. Kaufman said, all of the $4 million award that we received is based on a review, an in-depth review by DECD and DEEP.
What does DECD stand for?
Department of Economic and Community
Okay.
Development,
Okay.
which is the awarding agency for brownfield. It oversees all brownfields for the state of Connecticut. So this is what they do all day, every day. DEEP, similarly, as a part of their application review process for all brownfield applications, DEEP is intimately involved in that process.
And they will be staying involved through the whole.
Both
Yeah,
agencies
it
stay
sounds like
involved.
they're going to be involved. They're going to have
It's
to
on the
be.
river.
Yeah, it's on the river. They're going to have to be involved the entire time.
That is the basis, not for our frustration, but for our asking respectfully that you think about that in the broader context. And we would ask that if you're not going to vote tonight, which we would respectfully ask that you do, and we're expecting, quite frankly, that was going to happen tonight, because we think that this is in a position to be voted upon, that you at least close the public hearing. And with that, we thank you for your time and attention tonight.
Thank you.
I have a housekeeping question.
Yeah.
If we did close, it's on. If we did close the public hearing, would we still be able to go and read the materials that we're missing from our
So
packets?
it would,
It's in the original.
so it would not be,
What's in our packet? What's
Just
in
with
the
so
packet that we
it's
have?
not new information. It's information that's in the master packet online.
So we can't go to the master packet?
Well, we would all have to go to the master packet.
Well, it is available.
Well, it's
It's
available.
available to us all, so technically we already have it.
So that wouldn't be unallowed if we closed the public
I
hearing?
don't think
That's
technically.
Technically, I don't think it would be allowed.
It would not be
Because once we
allowed.
close the hearing,
no more information?
no, you can't gather any more information.
No, I think it would be allowed to go to the master packet.
It is allowed because it's public information. It's been available.
It's been from the
It's not
original.
new information. It's not pulling in something new
Yeah,
to the conversation.
yeah.
It's a document that's already been supplied.
then
It's a
it can't-
document that was already made available. It's not, the document itself isn't going to change and provide any new information. So
Can't
No, we
either.
can't. Yeah,
Okay.
nobody
We
can.
can talk about our,
I just don't want
We
us
can
to get
discuss the
jammed up
motions, yeah.
if we're looking at, a couple pages that were
So
not
we
in our
can look at
packet.
the packet? The
we
master
can look at the
packet?
master packet, yes.
He's saying we can.
Yeah,
yeah,
then we could just make the decision. We would make the
Right.
decision.
right. We can discuss it among
Ours.
us, just without any other input.
Right.
Okay.
Because my opinion is, I don't think we're going to get any more information than we got tonight if we hold off. It's going to be similar
Yeah.
information. And I think, I don't think we're ready to make a vote on it tonight. I think we do all have to go through and mull over all of this. But I think prolonging the
Discussions?
the public hearing is unnecessary.
I think that if we're not going to vote tonight, that extending the public hearing wouldn't have any effect on what we do next, because if we get more information, great. If we don't, also great. and we, we'll have between now and the next meeting to go over what we do have. So when we come back, we should have a pretty good handle on everything, regardless of what new information, if any, we get. I just don't think there's any downside, since we're not voting tonight anyways, likely, extending the public hearing.
If I could ask Stephen a question, what more information could we possibly, as a group, get all together
From the master plan?
from staff?
It would just be public,
In
Be
my
public opinion.
yeah, public opinion.
in my opinion, I'm not sure if there is more information that we could receive. There's nothing that I can foresee coming before, because as the applicants have stated prior, this has been reviewed already by DECD. It's been reviewed by DEEP. They've received the funds to do the site remediation for the development. My review of the materials, it had a breakdown of all the information that they were going to do. It had a breakdown of all their studies. And if there were to be more materials, I'm not sure where we would receive more information from.
And then also on, like you said, public opinion. I went through and read this as she was going through this. I was following every word she was saying, tried to understand everything that was going on. And one part that's near and dear to my heart, it said some sort of agreement as to the snow plowing responsibilities of the road. She inserted town.
It's not a town road.
It's not a town road. So what I'm saying is, if that one insertion of town onto the record, to me, kind of makes it a town road. But it's coming from someone that is just speaking as a resident. So I'm listening to the professionals and the government, and I think we should close the hearing and have a vote.
Yeah, that's the decision you have to make on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
So how about we,
Nope.
should we,
Yeah. We can let her. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, on their rebuttal of some of the things they said, they're redoing the remedial action plan, which you still haven't seen, but is noted quite regularly on your plans that you do have, that says, the remedial action plan will be used as a resource, but you don't even know what that's going to be because they're changing it. It hasn't been shown to you. It's nice that they say they're going to have it, but how do you know what it's going to say? How do you know how they're going to remediate the place? How do you know if there's going to be impact to the river or whatever else? Sure, DEP will be reviewing it when they give it to them, but do we know that they've approved that plan yet? We don't even know that. It has to be part of the record. That's my opinion, that it has to be part of the record. They haven't gotten that $4 million yet. They don't get that $4 million until they start doing the work. And everything has been approved, and everything's been stamped and approved and so forth. I understand it takes a long time. You can't ask. You can go back in. If you close this public hearing, it's my opinion that if you go back in and find something that you have a question on, they cannot answer it. So you will not be able to ask any more questions. There is a document that I have seen where the town accepted North River Street as a road back in the 1920s. And I can bring that to you the next time as a town road. And there were a number of town roads that were approved by the selectmen to be town roads. There is a dispute with the owners as to who owns the land. That's not our decision, but I believe that is a town road. The natural diversity database questions, they didn't even mention anything about that because nobody wants to talk about the critters. And I don't blame them because they probably don't want to deal with it like most places. And I understand it's going to be a better place in the future, but we still have to follow the rules that have been set up and make sure all those steps are taken, and make sure what you're approving is what you see on those plans and all those reports that were included in this document and what was posted online. They gave you a lot of new information tonight, and that should be posted online. So if you do keep this open, we can then actually look at it instead of looking at a bunch of dots and pink and black and so forth online and up there and can't even read what it says. So it's important you take your time for this. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Just gonna come up. We have all the information.
Yes.
We received new site plans and new information.
Yes, so the
In our package
information.
on Friday.
Yes, the information that was contained in the PowerPoint has been the same information since first submission.
Yeah.
The only changes were the requests for, some additional, what's it called? Fabric and stuff for the drainage and for stuff during construction. So other than the few changes that were made, the information has not changed since the beginning. I will respond to the critter stuff. DEP did do a review of that. That was one of the groups that is involved. It's the entire deep staff, so top to bottom.
I thought I read that in the documents, that there was nothing was found.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a baseline, just to kind of go back to kind of inland wetlands in general. It's about protecting the waterway. And I think what we've shown through the plans is that we are not only protecting the waterway, but in bettering the site and bettering the water that will be entering the river and the water in general in Weathersfield on this parcel. No, I'm sorry, not Weather. I'm from Weathersfield. Enfield in this parcel. So I think the spirit of inland wetlands and what it stands for, which is very important, has been met with this application, and what we plan on doing on site and following all the procedures outlined by the state. So thank you.
Thank you.
If I may. And I just also want to mention a comment that the comment of this being a town road versus a private road, that is more of a planning and zoning concern, that is not within the inland wetlands jurisdiction. And so that's, an important factor to make sure where jurisdictional lines lay. And I guess I have no other comments.
Okay, thank you.
So notwithstanding the fact that if we close the public hearing, we can't hear from the public.
Correct.
But Karen brought up a point, we wouldn't even be able to ask them a question. What if we go back and we relook at everything and we have a question, we won't be able to ask them. So I think it would be good for them as well.
If I may add, if you ask a question on clarification of materials, you can ask a question on the materials that are currently presented. So a question on current materials would have to relay an answer based on those materials. It just, as long as they're not bringing in new information saying, oh, well, we have a hidden study. That would not, as far as from what my review was, that may not be an applicable scenario. As they've presented to us the remedial action plan, they've presented to us stormwater reports. They have made revisions to these reports upon requests. And so I guess to further and answer your concern of, does closing the public hearing mean that they won't be able to answer a question? That's not necessarily the case, because again, if you ask a question on a clarifying material, that could still be answered.
Yeah, just can't take in new information.
Okay.
So have you received everything that you need?
Yes, I have.
All the comments have been?
Yep, all the comments have been addressed for other staff. As I said, I just had my 2 minor comments on drafting concerns. But from my perspective, and it appears from the perspective of other town staff, comments and concerns have been addressed.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and have a vote today. because I believe that we have the materials that we need, and all of any questions that we seem to have seem to be based on non-wetlands related items. I think that moving this to the other commissions and letting them address their concerns is kind of the best course of action. I work in construction contracting. I know how difficult timelines are and project schedules can get. It sucks. So I am going to have a motion to close the public hearing and have a vote today.
Okay.
And if possible, I would like to second that.
Who said that? Ken? So Dylan, to close the public hearing, seconded by Ken.
Yes.
Further discussion?
Shouldn't the two be separated? Because
No, we're
maybe-
closing the public hearing.
So he's saying, and move to vote tonight.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just specify.
Have a move to close the public hearing
We'll
first.
do that first.
Okay.
And I'll second that to close the public hearing.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call?
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes to close.
Virginia Higley, yes to close. Kelly Himmler.
Yes to close.
Dylan Bridge.
Yes.
Ken Kaufman.
Yes to close.
Chris Renault.
No to close.
No. 6 in favor, 1 against. Motion passes to close the public hearing. So it is 7:46 that we're closing the public hearing. So the next would be if we want to do a motion to, do we want to take a vote, or what do you want to do?
I move we've closed it, but I move that we continue and not vote until the next meeting. I'm sure it can be worded better, but I'd like to see it voted on the next meeting.
Is that your motion? Is that your motion? Second.
Wait a minute. I'm writing this down.
Yeah.
Jenny Kelly. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to continue the application to the next meeting,
And Kelly seconded it.
and Kelly seconded it. Any discussion?
Yes, my question would be, what more information can we rule on, or read on, or discuss? Well, we can't discuss anything other than right here in a group setting. What more could Stephen possibly give to us which would hold off a vote?
There's a motion on the floor.
This is a discussion
This is
part of it.
discussion.
Oh, okay.
It's more, I think, for reviewing the material that we have. I think that's what the thought is.
Right, we're not looking for new information. We can't have new information, so we just want to review what we have. It's a lot.
A lot coming from the applicants, or a lot coming from a resident? I guess that's my question. What can we take as valid information from professionals or from resident?
I feel like in order for this to be justified to be moved to the next meeting, there needs to be some sort of physical information that someone needs to present at the next meeting to justify having to push that. I personally believe that we have all the information we need to make a decision tonight. That's my personal belief. And I think Ken brings up a good point that I don't think that Stephen or the applicants or other members of the public are going to bring any new information that we don't know as of tonight.
We can't have.
We
new
can't accept
information.
anything
We can't have-
anyway. So what we have is right in front of
Well,
us
that's
in the
like
paper
after
we
reviewing
have.
materials and stuff like
I
it.
just want, this is a large scope, and I just personally myself want to go over it one more time, make sure I have no more questions so I can make an educated decision on how to vote at the next meeting. That's just me personally.
I agree.
All right, well, she has a motion, and you have a second.
A motion and a
right?
second. So continue to the next meeting is, the motion is to continue to the next meeting, this application. Okay, roll call.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
I gotta write something down here. No.
Kevin Zorda.
No.
Virginia Higley, yes. Kelly Himmler.
Yes.
Dylan Bridge.
No.
Ken Kaufman.
No.
Chris Renault.
Yes.
So 4 in favor, 3 in favor, 4 saying no, 3 saying yes. The noes
So it's
win
a
it.
vote tonight.
So it's a vote for tonight. Did I get that right?
Yes.
I'd write no and yes.
Yep.
All right, so then I will make a motion.
We have some conditions I want to,
Yeah, I was gonna,
yeah. So I had come up with some conditions for the vote. So as I went through the applications, just stuff that's already out there that has been, but just to have it as a condition, because we've had issues about that in the past. So no salt to be used in the parking lot, sidewalks, walking paths. It needs to be environmentally friendly because we're so close to the water. Snow from the parking lot, sidewalks, and that will be removed if it's large, as we discussed, large storms and that, storm management. And you're going to make a storm management plan. If you could, a copy could go to the town.
I put a specific, detailed and specific maintenance plan, including snow removal and water quality treatment system maintenance shall be included.
Okay. Great. And then I have groundwater post-remediation must be monitored with a minimum of 4 samplings to reflect seasonal variability on a quarterly basis and the report sent to the town.
I'll add that into there. yeah.
Okay. The contaminated soil that is to be relocated below the new building slab renders the soil environmentally isolated. Your linear low-density polythene geomembrane liner will be installed over the ash-laden fill and between the building and the wall. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's already part of the plan, right?
Yeah, but I just wanted as the condition to make sure, all that. All new soil must be treated and approved prior to arrival on site. Contaminated soil that remains must meet deep requirements. That was already part of that, just to have it in there. No cut or fill within the wetlands.
Absolutely.
Okay. Post-construction stormwater management, I think you said that.
Yeah.
Maintenance procedures must be followed to ensure the systems operate adequately over time. And it talked about the inlet. You had it broken down on your comments. So it's that part of it, that the inlet, sumps, the filters, hydrodynamic separator, infiltration facilities, and the report sent to the town.
Yeah.
Requests for approval of the criteria for additional polluting substances and certain alternative criteria and request forms will be completed for the project and submitted to DEEP for approval. You're already doing that. And the approval from DEEP needs to be added to the project documentation and on file with the town. Is that doable? Okay. That was, yep.
And just to clarify, are those all going to be conditions of approval?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll put them in.
It's kind of written out here.
Yeah.
I had to write it right down.
All right, I will make a motion to approve IW number 71533 North River Street, application for a wetland permit for development of an apartment complex and associated improvements within the Upland Review Area, 33 North River Street LLC applicant, Ilona Levitz owner, map 7, lot 3, TD 4 zone, with the following site-specific conditions.
Can you just, like what I just said? Okay.
Yeah,
We just use those?
I'm gonna reread them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll reread them just so it's on record. And one additional, so I'll put it number 1, is that the revised grubbing, clearing delineation will be placed on the plan and submitted to the staff. Number 2, no salt to be used in parking lots, sidewalks, walking paths. Materials need to be environmentally friendly. Snow from parking lots, sidewalks,
Pathways.
and pathways need to be addressed in a specific maintenance plan submitted to staff. Groundwater post-remediation must be monitored with a minimum of 4 samplings to reflect seasonal variability on a quarterly basis and report sent to the town. The contaminated soil that is being relocated below the new building slab renders the soil environmentally isolated with a linear, low-density polyethylene geomembrane liner, which will be installed over the ash-laden fill between the building and the wall. All new soil must be treated and approved prior to arrival on site and contaminated soil that remains meets deep requirements. No cut or fill shall be done within the wetlands. Post-construction stormwater management maintenance procedures must be followed to ensure the systems operate adequately over time, including inlet sumps, filters, hydrodynamic separators, infiltration facilities. That maintenance plan will be sent to the town as well as annual reports. And the request for approval of criteria for additional polluting substances and certain alternative criteria and request forms will be completed for the project and submitted for DEEP approval. The approval from DEEP needs to be added to the project documentation on file with the town. I think that's it.
I'd like to second that.
Any discussion?
Just want to say that overall, I'm a fan of this project. I think it's going to be a good thing. I just want to put it like the whole reason I was against voting tonight is just I have had no time to digest what we've heard tonight, and for that reason, I'm going to end up abstaining from the vote. But if DEEP approved it and everything, I understand that. But if we're just going to go off of that, what are we doing here? If everything that DEEP approves, there's really no need for us to be up here if we're just going to rubber stamp everything. So
I don't think you should abstain. I agree with everything you've said. I think it's a great project. I look forward to having it built in our town. But unfortunately, because I feel rushed, I will unfortunately be voting no.
Anybody else?
I'm in the same boat. I am not against the project. I think it's going to be a great project, but I feel rushed, and I don't think we should be rushed. So I will be voting no.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so we got Kevin and Ken seconding. I've we've had this material for a while. I've gone through it quite a few times at home, so that's why I felt comfortable with tonight. So, can we have roll call, please?
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, no. Kelly Hemler.
No.
Dylan Bridge.
Yes.
Kevin Kaufman.
Yes.
Christopher no.
abstain.
So we have 4 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstain. Motion passes.
Good luck, and it'll be
Good
wonderful.
luck. Thank you. Okay. Next is old business, notice of a violation of 348 Hazard Ave.
Oh, boy, not again.
All right, so this is.
Continuing one. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is more of a update on 348 Hazard Ave. When I last reported on this, I had gone out to the site, and we said that the trees had looked a little small, but you asked me to go back out to the site in the spring to confirm that they indeed made it through the winter and that they are up here alive and healthy. I had completed that inspection this previous Friday. And I met with Mr. Matt DeRoma on site at 10 o'clock. And when we walked out into the back, as you can see by the picture submitted, the trees did indeed make it through the winter, and they do appear to be growing healthily. And during my site inspection, the other part of the violation being the trucks that were parked down by the wetland, they still are not there. I did not see any tire tracks down there. And he had even submitted a wetland scientist report from Jackson Environmental. They had gone down there, they had looked for wetlands in the area that was in question. He did not find any wetlands there in particular, but off onto the neighboring property, there was a water outlet where he found wetlands on the neighboring property.
Right.
So that area may still be within the upland review area,
Right.
but everything being said and done, it appears that Matt DeRoma has gone ahead and addressed the violation. He's corrected it, and I essentially believe that the violation is okay to be closed out.
Thank you. No, sounds good. All right. Anybody want to make a motion to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close out the violation of 348 Hazard Avenue.
Second.
So it's Kevin, and yeah, in a minute, and Dylan, so Kevin and Dylan, yep. Okay, discussion?
I have a question for staff. We're going to close this out tonight if everyone votes for it. Now, if it or one prior to it comes back again in 6 months or a year, can we use the fine violation that fine power we now have to go after that person? Because it seems to be in cycles. You know, it's good for a while, everything gets cleaned up, and then the same thing happens. And then it gets cleaned up, and then the same thing happens. And then now it's get cleaned up again. So if it happens again, this is all closed out. This would be a new violation. Can we go right into fines?
If it's a new violation, that may be an option. As staff, we prefer to try and work with the
Yes.
the violator, of course, but if it's something
This
that's,
is a chronic violation property.
I understand that. Well, I should say I now understand that. I will have a further conversation with staff because I can't confirm that exactly right now.
Okay.
But if we feel that this is something that happens over and over and over, and we feel that it is severe enough, we may use citations at that point.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'd appreciate an answer so that I would know going forward.
Yeah, so maybe, so it might be worth waiting, so I might vote no, just on my own thing, only so that we can get clarification on that.
Well, so from my understanding is that it would be a new violation. So we can't apply any
Correct.
violations. We can't apply any fines
Fines to
to any
this.
current open violations.
But if we close
But if we
this
close them and
and it happens again.
6 months, they come back with a new violation, then we could impose fines.
Correct.
We can go through the process to do that.
Okay, then I feel comfortable.
If, I know you're very busy, but if you could just check to make sure that if something like this or another parcel that's always challenging comes up, that we can go straight to fines.
Okay, so I think
appreciate it.
what we need to do is, we did receive, I received the email and I forwarded it to you from the attorney regarding the process on how the violation is going to work.
Oh,
So if
okay.
we could review that at our next meeting. It just doesn't,
Just don't go right to fine.
No. There's a hearing, they got to hire a couple people to do some hearings or something.
So the way that the process works in general, with my understanding, is that typically we would issue something such as a notice of violation or a cease and desist order. If it's not corrected, we can then issue a fine. And then they have the option to appeal a fine.
Yeah, and they get
And
a
then that's where that
hearing,
part of the
yeah.
process that you were speaking of,
No, it still works.
Which would happen no matter what.
Right.
correct.
Okay, so we have a motion to close by Kevin and Dylan. And any more discussion? No, roll call.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Kelly Hemler.
Yes.
Dylan Bridge.
Yes.
Ken Kaufman.
Yes.
Chris Brunel.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. We have no new business. So enforcements, you left this on our desk, is that?
Yeah, so that was actually from Rick earlier today. Let me pull that up myself.
83 First
My
Avenue
papers
or
are everywhere.
Yep, we know that one.
Yeah, we
Here.
know that one.
Nope, I'm looking for where? Please give me one more. Here we are. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and read off of Rick Rochelli's memo here.
Sure.
On March 9th, 2024, a cease and desist order was issued to the owner of 83 First Ave, Amadi Zander, for violations of the Enfield IWWA regulations, along with the zoning violations regarding excavation activities on 83 First Ave and the abutting property to the south. The excavation activities resulted in diversion of Great Brook and the resulting flooding on properties that are in the area. Due to the extensive effects of the diversion of Great Brook and the pending improvements proposed by DEEP to the culvert that runs under Route 91, DEEP was advised of the violations, and DEEP has inspected the properties several times and issued a notice of violation themselves to the property owners. A pending agreement to remedy the violations and correct the diversion of Great Brook has been drafted by DEEP and is attached for review by staff and the Enfield IWWA. Enfield IWWA. If there are any comments or concerns that need to be addressed with the proposed draft, please advise, and they will be submitted to Deep for further review.
So this whole thing is there.
Yep.
Do we have time to review?
If you have time to look these over,
And at the next meeting, we could,
you can give them to me at the next meeting. You can give them to me over an email.
Okay.
This is Deep looking for comments and feedback.
okay. Because to read it now would take a little while.
It's not
All
on
right.
the agenda.
And it's not, yeah, it's not on the agenda. So we can read it and talk about it next meeting, or come in with comments.
Yep.
And then I had asked, since we're on enforcement reports, I've asked Stephen and Rick that we could review all open enforcements.
Oh, good idea.
Some of them are from, 2022.
Yep.
So,
Excellent.
and maybe,
That's going to take a while for us to be able to go back and go through everything because we still have to look at
Yeah.
previous reports and stuff. So we'll be
yeah,
working on that in the
pick away at
background.
it, bring some in next time and some the next time, or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, so we could get them moving,
Maybe get moved in first.
Yeah.
Is this like the report you're asking about?
Oh, yeah, that'll be under
Yeah.
miscellaneous. Planning staff report,
Nothing else to include?
okay. Applications to be received, IW 716, 28 and 36 South River Street, application for wetland permit for site remediation within the Connecticut River, upland review area. Matthews Landing LLC and South River Realty LLC, applicant owner, map 8, lots 19 and 17, TD1 zone. So keep your information, that's next meeting.
May I add something to that?
Sure.
So this application is coming in on a previous notice of violation.
Right.
And the applicant is concerned about the violation being on their record for when they want to propose development later on down the road. And so I was thinking maybe as a part of the motion for this application, could we include the motion to also close out the violation as it is a part of the agreement from IWWA back in December to submit the application to allow them to continue doing the work that they were doing?
I would say no, because we would want to understand, we want to
Well, I
review
mean, we
the
can
application.
consider it, but we're not going to promise.
Have
Yeah.
they
I
been
wanna see the
adhering to the
information.
cease and desist?
Just don't lump it in with the application. That way, we're
two
pick
different
and
things.
choose.
Two
We can
separate
ask separate questions, and it won't get all melded together.
So at the next meeting, we'll discuss both.
Okay, so the only reason why I was asking this question is because they were already in the middle of doing the work when they were issued this notice of violation. And the permit, while we all agreed that this in general was a good project to try and clean up the river area, we had stops them because they didn't achieve the correct permits that they needed prior to doing that. So from,
But they still don't have them yet.
right.
They haven't
That's
approved them. So,
right. So from the town's perspective, there's not a concern of them continuing the work because they clearly want to do it. They already got halfway through it, more or less. It was the making sure that they achieved the permits and that they're doing the process correctly.
but they don't have the permits yet.
Well, it's just the wetlands permit. What I'm trying to say is,
But they
do
don't
we
have
want
the
to
permits yet.
include?
So we have a cease and desist to stop. And
Yeah.
Right.
to stop doing what they were doing because they were invading and whatever on our wetlands.
So what I'm trying to say is,
Saying,
as a
no.
motion to approve that application, do we also want to put the motion to close out that violation along with that?
Well, let's see what the application
Is.
looks like in his information.
And see
how-
if he's
yeah,
accomplishing.
How he's accomplishing it.
Everything.
Okay, that's all I was trying to.
Yeah.
That's
So
all I
until
was
we
trying to
can-
ask.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do it now. We'd have
Yeah.
to get all the information.
Oh, absolutely.
And talk to them and get pictures and everything.
Okay.
Should we schedule a public hearing, or you wait?
Oh, for this?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so.
No, I don't think this is a public hearing. one.
Yeah, this isn't too much.
Small.
It's a small, yeah,
Go for it.
yeah. Yeah, you could walk it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, but make sure you go through Stephen to,
Yeah.
okay. So miscellaneous. So remember to bring the violation thing for next meeting, along with the application.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next is miscellaneous. Ken, your list.
Yes, Steve, is it any chance of getting the application status list updated? I have one from April of '25.
I think that was the last one, and quite frankly, I believe since April of '25, it's just been these two applications that we've received. Because we were not in session at all in the month of May. So I believe the application would only really include IW 715 and IW 716.
That would include all the ones that are also closed?
I believe so, correct.
Well,
If you would
can I
like,
say
I can
something?
still make an updated list, but I'm just letting you know that that's going to have minimal, if any, changes
So
to
one
it.
thing, when we talked about this once before, and then we said she has these, she crossed them off if they were closed. We found out that,
Some are missing.
no, well, pieces are closed, because she's taking them off. They're closed, but they're not completed. The job isn't completed. So permit can stay open for a while until you get.
5 years.
5 years until you do all the work and get all the permits and everybody's happy. But what they're doing is they're pulling it off of this list before that happens.
And then it goes into limbo.
And then it goes into limbo. So we would like to see everything that is truly open and still in process and still working on.
Or truly.
So just to make sure I'm understanding you correct, do you want the list to show all the closed but still not completed?
Yeah.
Okay, I can.
know what I
can do
mean?
that. I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
The angle you were all looking for here.
Yeah,
So-
we used to get a very detailed
Detailed
spreadsheet of all of them.
Yeah. And it's, because it takes time for people to get all their permits that they
Yeah.
need and everything going on. And then you drive down the road and there's
Or
work
there's,
starts and you
or
say like,
there's a new member.
what is that,
or there's a new member that comes on the board that doesn't know that it's already been approved.
Right.
Yeah, and then you get, comments from people and complaints saying there's,
No,
you
I
say,
can do
oh,
that.
yeah, we approved that 3 years ago. They're just getting around to starting it.
Yeah, I can do that. I can. I'll try and get it for the next meeting.
Yeah.
If not, I'll.
Yeah, do your best.
And because we used to, staff used to tell us that people would start projects and there would be no pre-construction meeting with you guys. So it helped us and you guys keep track of that as well.
Yeah.
Well, development's also been a bit slow. I'm not telling you guys
Yeah.
when projects are starting. It's just development's been slow, and it's either been
Oh, yeah, it takes time.
continuing off
Yeah,
current
yeah, it
stuff or
takes time.
whatever.
Got
Yeah.
stuff going on. We
Yeah, that's fine. But, if we get an updated list every once in a while, and then, you drive down the road and say, did we do that? And you can look at the list
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it's in process, it's still going.
At one time, the building department used to list all their open permits. Do you know if they still do that?
I'm not sure. I could not answer that right now.
But would it be inland wetlands?
If it's an inland wetlands approval, they'd have to get a permit to like build a shed or put in a pool or, that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's good. Oh, and then, the new violation process on how that's gonna,
Yeah. The fee,
The email.
yeah, if we could just
clarify it.
clarify how that's gonna work. Because my understanding from what the attorney said, it wasn't gonna be,
Yeah.
it was gonna be a hair different than what we do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I don't want to be a Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
It's not
Anything else, anybody? Have any comments,
If-
questions, concerns?
if there's nothing else, I move to adjourn.
Okay, that was Ginny.
Second that one.
Second Ken, and it's 8:13.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Wow, a long one.
Yeah.